Criminologist David Wilson to shed a little light on the latest phase of this investigation. And I think anyone, whenever they talk about this story, it's very emotive for all sorts of different reasons. And you always hope that at some point it will come to an end and we will know something. There'll be some sort of closure here. So where are we at the moment with this? What's the latest?
Well, firstly, can I say it's lovely to be back. And it's nice to see you again, Craig. All the latest developments relate to something that happened in 2020, which was when the German authorities named a man called Christian Bruckner, but the papers sometimes call him Christian B, as a prime suspect in the Madeleine McCann case. Although, remember, this is a suspect. He's never been charged with anything. Christian B was in Praia de Luz at the time that Madeleine goes missing. His mobile phone records place him there. He changed the number plate on his car the day after Madeleine goes missing. But more importantly, he is an undifferentiated predatory sex offender, which means that he will attack sexually older people. He's a gerontophile, but he's also a paedophile. When the police seized his mobile phone records, there were all kinds of images, child sexual abuse images. And therefore, this is a prime suspect that the German authorities need to rule out of their investigations, which is why we have the developments around the reservoir last week, because we know that Christian Bruckner, Christian B, would often go to the reservoir.
It's a strange one because it's so specific, the location of the search and what they seem to be looking for, but the details are so vague. So
Yes.
what do we actually know about this search?
You know, that's actually a really good question, because I would say, from having listened to what the German authorities said and looked at the search itself, this is a huge reservoir, but they only spent 3 days there, and therefore they took away materials from very specific locations. Now, that would imply, Craig, that they're going on intelligence-led information that's come into their domain that they're not sharing with us. So I think they're targeting specific areas. And of course, again, what they're trying to do is either rule Christian B in or out through the kinds of search that they've been making.
So we know that they've been seen taking evidence from the site. I guess now it's a waiting game for everybody while they go through that, which I guess, I mean, you're the expert here. Does that take weeks and months to process things like that?
Well, they've already said, Holly, that it's going to take a long time. But remember, this has been 16 years, as you said in your VT. So what they'll be looking for is really at the microscopic level. And what would have survived would be skeletal remains, if there was indeed a body there, or clothing, perhaps some fibres that might be of use, or plastic, any toys that a child might have had. So this is really going to take some time. And the German authorities have admitted it's going to be a matter of weeks or months rather than days.
I know it's 16 years, but every time you see your little face, it's just every parent, every human's worst nightmare. I mean, it's so awful. And the public's fascination seems unfair. Interest in the story never goes away. And I guess the summer people are going over to Portugal, over to Praia de Luz. It'll still be the area where Madame McCann went missing. And the fear is still there for every single parent.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a parent, I'm a grandparent. Both of you are parents. But the fascination stems from a number of different things, doesn't it? Frankly, you know, as a criminologist, this case is bewildering. It's baffling. This isn't just a mystery. It's multiple mysteries. This isn't just a whodunit, but how did this happen? And of course, all of those things add to a sense in which it's not going to be resolved. It hasn't been resolved in 16 years, and therefore people begin to make up their own theories. The other thing to remember about Madeleine is that, you know, she would be what we've called, and you and I have discussed this before, Halls, she's an ideal victim. She's white, she's blonde-haired, she's from a middle-class background. Those kinds of victims, either in abduction or murder, are going to attract a great deal of attention, whilst other types of victims who aren't ideal won't attract any attention at all. But this is a worldwide case. You know, I've just come off a theatre tour, a national theatre tour, and in the second half of that tour, people could ask questions. And whether we were in England, Scotland or Wales, what people wanted to know about was Madeleine McCann.
When I saw this news breaking that this investigation was taking place back in Portugal, you can't help but think of the parents again and what they've been through. How will they be feeling about this? I mean, they've said they've never given up hope. I know that it would have been Madeleine's 20th birthday last month, and they said that we're never going to give up. How will they be feeling about this?
Well, they've made a number of statements in response to what's happening in Germany. They've said they're never going to give up hope, and by that they mean they have never given up hope that Madeleine is alive. Now, one of the things, sadly, please, this is the health warning now for anybody who's listening out there, I know as a criminologist that children of this age who are abducted by a stranger will be murdered within the first few hours of the abduction. That has nothing to do necessarily with what might be interesting sexually, the predatory paedophile. It's got much more to do with their need to control the situation. It's easier to control an older child. A younger child is going to cry, and a younger child is more difficult to deal with. And so the German authorities themselves have said that they are presuming that Madeleine is now dead. Although, again, Jerry and Kate McCann, from their statements, are still hanging on to the hope that there are some children who are abducted who could be found. Natasha Kampusch springs to mind. It happens. But an older child, when she was abducted, she was 10, if memory serves me correctly. Older children who are abducted tend to be kept for much longer.
God love them. How do they just get through every day still, even 16 years on? I have just no idea. They need just those answers, those big answers, don't they?
And, you know, the other thing, Craig, is how do they get through all what's happened to their child? Remember, they were once our Guidos in this case. They are constantly facing a barrage of social media that vilifies them for the part that they played. Because, again, as we know, we're parents. I'm a grandparent as well as a parent. They did leave Madeleine and her twin siblings in the holiday apartment by themselves. That has led to a whole range of opposition to what part the McCanns might or might not have played. Although remember, whilst they were Guidos, that means they were suspects in the original Portuguese investigation, but when the case was archived in Portuguese term, they no longer are suspects. And since then, we've had British investigations which have said there's no evidence to say they were involved.
Well, thank you, and I'm sure we'll be talking about this again, and let's hope this investigation brings some sort of closure to this situation. Thank you. Thank you.
Nice to see you both.